Hello and welcome to Tinto Yaps, that time of the week where I have a look at all of the developer comments surrounding the game Project Caesar, which may or may not potentially possibly be EU5. And we start off with this artwork here. This was posted on Wednesday in the Dev Diary about culture and language. And there was a bit of controversy, as there always is, people thinking that this is AI artwork. And for myself, I am not well versed in discovering and spotting and whatever on AI art unless it's very, very obvious. And I don't think it is very, very obvious here. There are some issues that I see. The compositing of this lady onto the background is a little bit weird along the top of the mandolin, and this hand looks weird. However, I don't think that that automatically screams AI art. And I have a comment here to share with you. Art is made for a purpose. We don't make unique marketing illustrations for Tinto Talks, but reuse them from elsewhere in the game. In this case, it's a small window illustration that's been blown up, which is why the rough brushstrokes don't quite hold up when you zoom in on it. If we go back to the artwork, and let's test that theory. Yeah, the compositing on the top of, I think it's a mandolin, I'm not sure, looks fine. That hand looks fine. Nothing here is standing out at this scale as being egregious. And I think for the most part, it generally does look fine. I do think they're, especially at the zoomed out level, then everything is fine there. I will say that all of the artwork that we've seen, from my perspective at least, they all hold the same style. And having dabbled a little bit with AI artwork before, I think the ability to keep that same style is a bit more difficult than people make out. Having, however many images that we've been shown of this style, 30, 40, 50, whatever, images of this, kind of brush strokey kind of situation. Having all of them in the same style, despite being China, and then us getting, a British and Castilian and Italian and all of these completely disparate cultures, and all having the same art style, that's a lot of work. No, I'm not gonna lie, that is a lot of work. So I would say I'm not convinced that this is AI, and like we've already seen before, people saying, "Oh, this artwork is AI," and Johan responding with, "I was literally stood behind the dude as he drew it." So yeah, I feel like the AI witch hunt is a little bit too heavy, and maybe it could be toned down just as much. But moving on, we have this killer of a thread by Pavia talking about the languages again, because of course there was a little bit of controversy and a little bit of complaining about what constitutes language, what constitutes dialect, and it doesn't fit one-to-one with standard language tree models and family groups and blah-de-blah. And of course, this is a game that doesn't necessarily have to fit one-to-one with reality. So Pavia wanted to clarify some aspects of how languages mechanics works, why they've made the linguistical division of the Iberian Peninsula this way, and a couple of forefront thoughts. The design is on purpose. They've thought quite intensely about how to portray the Iberian languages and cultures in the best way possible. And please note that there are a bunch of diverse Spaniards working right now at Tinto, and some of them have backgrounds related with history and linguistics. And also, it's a game. So even if they want to portray the most realistic simulation possible for 1337, they have to make some trade-offs to accommodate the simulation with the game mechanics, which are designed to try to make it fun. This is very important. So on the language tiers, of course, we have the language families, they have languages, and then dialects. This has, light modifiers. Language families give light modifiers. Languages is where the bulk of the mechanics are, and dialects are purely flavor. I don't think I've seen any situation where dialects are done for anything other than flavor, and, the name of a character is flavor. It's not mechanics. Do the language families, languages, and dialects accommodate one-to-one with linguistics? No, and they probably shouldn't as well. In some cases, there'll be fewer tiers compared to the academic classifications, while in others, one or two may be redundant. So, specifically on the Iberian languages, it's quite clear that all but Basque is part of the Romance language family. In the next level of language, that what they had in the Middle Ages was a continuum of different but related languages, a bit of a gradient, let's say, from west to east. Galician Portuguese, Astur-Leonese, Castilian, Navarro Aragonese, and Catalan. So, do you add all of these languages? No, not really. They were related to their neighbours, therefore, and the Astur-Leonese was kind of the middle point between Castilian Portuguese and Castilian, and so on, something that modern linguistical language trees don't portray so well. However, the granularity is not really what they wanted for the game mechanics at the language level, as you may notice that they use bigger language blocks. Thus, they have to go one level up in the linguistics classification and use Western Iberian Romance and Occitano Romance groups as the languages, and that isn't the type of jargon that works in the game, so they simplified it to Spanish and Occitan. Seems kind of reasonable to me. Having the same court language for Castile and Portugal was something, on the other hand, that doesn't work gameplay-wise, as Portuguese was already well established by the kings of Portugal in 1337, in contrast with Astur-Leonese, subdued by Castilian, and Aragonese, which was relegated by Catalan, even if it was still an administrative language in Aragon itself, technically. That's why they decided to split it, so they could have 4 court languages in the Iberian realms: Portuguese, Spanish, Occitan, and Arabic. And finally, they use the dialect category to play the flavor of those languages. You've already seen how it works regarding location naming. So, for example, Perpignan, 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 yeah, I pronounced all of those pretty much the same, but whatever. And it also works for character names. So, Yuan, Yoan, Yoao, Zoan, Zoan, exactly, you know. It's not perfect. They know it's not perfect, but it is what they think is the best possible. And, that's fine by me. That's fine by me. You know, I think it's pretty fair of Pavia to respond. And also, this is on the Iberian feedback thread, which is kind of old at this point, this thread. So, yeah, no, very, very decent. Yeah, thought I'd bring that to you. Moving on, though, to the responses to the actual Tinto talks. I understand there are likely gameplay and other reasons for this, but I think having Scots as a separate language to English, which it is, would be a better representation. Sent Dave here. It's a good point. Many things we call dialects in Caesar have formed into discrete languages from the modern perspective, including Scots. Our goal is to focus on the history, though, and historically, early Scots formed a clear dialectical continuum with English. Furthermore, unique Scots language would only be a malice to Scotland, so a bit of gameplay is important, and also just, like, you know, historical importance as well. I did have quite a few comments talking about how Scots wasn't actually Scottish, it's not the modern Scottish, and I did understand this. I did understand that, you know, it is based on 1337 English and 1337 Scots, which are clearly a lot closer. If I go back in time to 1337, I walk my ass into the King's Court, I will understand probably less than 15% of what is said. Like, Old English is that much removed from English of the modern day, and Scots is that much removed from Scots of that day as well. I don't know how much this is. I'm much more familiar with Old English to English, but I imagine it's the same story. And even if it's not the same story, and, you know, Scots is completely unchanged from 1337 to now. Again, I went back in time. I didn't, but I went back in time, couldn't understand Old English. So I can't understand Scots now either. So that's, yeah, makes sense. Following the examples of Norse Gael, which is in 4 different culture groups, is there a way to mix 2 cultures or create new ones in the game, sort of like CK3? All cultures at the start stay the same for the entire game. As it stands, and I hope it doesn't stand, we don't mix and match cultures as in CK3. Although, I will say, as in CK3, I don't want that. I don't want that as in CK3. But I do think there are various situations where the merging of multiple cultures into one culture makes a lot of sense. Specifically, I'm talking about, for example, the French region. In France, there's a bunch of French cultures, lots of different French cultures. I think it wouldn't be against the realms of possibility for all of those to become French by the end of the game. Maybe with the exception of, like, bread. Maybe a little bit of Occitan in the south, but Norman and Parisian and Auvergnese, or all these different ones, especially in the north of France, becoming French by the end of the game, I don't have a problem with that. I think it would work pretty well. And the same goes for the Russian region. Novgorod and Muscovy and Ryazan and all the different Russian cultures in the north of Russia. I think if they merge into Russian, I wouldn't have a problem with that either. But I don't think it needs modifiers, as in CK3. But mix two cultures to create one is, I think would be a good idea. But anyway, moving on. Will there be mechanics of combining cultures? Again, this is what I've just said. They represent that as the country's primary culture, assimilating the minorities. So, yeah, I guess if we're looking at the French reason, then Parisian will just be the culture that is over Normandy. Although, having said that, I think it could definitely be done this way. You know, the primary culture assimilating the minorities, and then give these countries a decision to change the name, purely flavor, purely just a decision click to change the name of Parisian, change the name of Muscovite into French and Russian. Because I suppose that is kind of more accurate to what happened. You know, Novgorod didn't become Russian, right? They were integrated by Muscovites, and then Muscovites changed the name of their culture to Russian. But they're still Muscovites to this day. And you know what? Yeah, that I'm actually changing my mind in the middle of a video. I think this is fine. You know, mechanics to combine cultures, no need. Give us a decision to rename it when we hit a certain threshold, when we become an empire, perhaps. Give a decision to rename your primary culture to something. Purely flavor. I would like intercultural opinions to be dynamic. They are. Cool, moving on. Well, cultures that colonize the New World form new cultures, like Spanish cultures forming Mexican, or, you know, British cultures forming American. Currently, no, that is not a thing. Interested to hear opinions about how that could work, though. I'm not sure cultures are necessarily needed. I mean, I'm much more familiar with the British to American culture difference than I am with Spanish to Mexican. And I recognize that Spanish and Mexican are different cultures. But historically, I don't know when that was really a thing. I don't know when that happened. For American being colonized by Britain, I think I would be fine if it was just a dialect, but then dialect is just flavor in the game. And at that point, what do you change? Right? What do you make a difference from the English culture to American culture in game terms? If flavor, if this language, sorry, if the dialects tier is just name lists, what do you remove some of the more English names and add stuff like Chad, Bryson, and you know, that kind of way. Is that what you do? Because I'm not feeling that. I'm not feeling that, especially for the period. Those very, very American names are a bit more modern, I would imagine. Brad, that yeah, I don't know. It's a I don't know. My opinion is mixed. It would be nice to see American culture on the map, or American language, or American dialect, or American something on the map. I just don't know how I would do it in game terms. Should Chinese be split into its varieties that are not mutually intelligible and be a language family and not a single group? It's not an easy task, but it's something they would like to do. So people saying, this Chinese should be split up, they're looking at it. They're looking into it. Why isn't the court language of England Norman? It actually is the Norman dialect, which belongs to the French language. Court language map mode shows the languages, not the dialects, so that makes sense. Project Caesar won't have support for modding in different types of culture groups that give different bonuses, right? So, this for my Anbanar bros. Anban bros. And bronars. Whatever. In the base game, cultures and culture groups don't have any modifiers, but it is exposed to modders. If they want to create a fantasy orc race with unique modifiers or give Welsh culture its historic bonuses. Out of curiosity, can we just ask, what's the difference here? Bro just talked about orcs twice. No. But yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool that they're, you know, allowing that from the very beginning. That gets the lovey heart face from me. That is fantastic. Love me some support from modders. And again, Anbanar in EU5 is, I'm sure, going to slap so hard. Can we access the culture special content if we accept that culture? Be a huge boon for modders. Almost always, it's possible to script for modders. For the base game, it depends on the content. We don't have a single rule for everything, but script on a case-by-case basis. Again, just love being given to mod bros, and I think that is fantastic. Is what we love to see. I think there is. I see one issue with, and it's a little bit of a tangent. One issue for Anbanar or fantasy mods in general is a single manpower pool for different races, whereas I think it'd be cool if you could have, this is my human manpower pool, and this is my orc manpower pool, and my elf manpower pool, etc. A little bit of a tangent, but that's the only issue that I see right now. Everything else has been super kind to modders, and yeah, I love seeing this kind of stuff. Will we have a map mode for culture groups? It's hard to do, as they can only easily show 2 dimensions at a time. But a culture can have any number of culture groups. How do we represent Norse Gael on the map? I would say you show the main... If you're on the culture group map mode, you see Norse Gael. The largest culture group that it is a part of is shown as the main color. Second largest, hashed line. That's it. That's how... Or chevrons, or... the stripes. That's how I would do it. Maybe that would look bad, but I don't know. Moving on. It's somewhat unrelated, but will there be a diplomatic macro builder in Project Caesar? Yes. Moving on. I mean, like, yeah, obviously, yes. This macro builder is amazing. Shown that Turkish court languages be Persian. Persian was the official court language of most of the Turks. Maybe some of them were Persianized to an extent, although the Persian influence at this point has been mainly from the Mongol Ilkhanate rather than a strong native Persian state. But they can do a review of it. If that makes more sense, they should do that. Makes sense. Will Catalan culture belong to the Iberian culture group and Occitan to the French culture group? Yes, though Catalan and Gascon also both belong to the Pyrenean group. So I love the fact that you can be in multiple groups. I think that is fantastic. I'd suggest to maybe change culture group into language group, like West Slavic, Romance, etc. Language groups exist and are far less controversial than culture groups, plus language group would imply cultural connections. So, St. Dave here is saying that culture group exists to show connections beyond language, like British or Iberian, for example. Fair enough, I have no problems with that. What's the reason for not including Cisalpine language into Italian? And what the hell is a Cisalpine and Alpine languages? Okay, a bit aggressive there. Italian is a modern construct. There are many different linguistical variations in Italy. We divided into the Northern Italian, Cisalpine, and Southern Italian, following the linguistic classification. And bro came with sources. Bro came with sources. So, yeah. Where are we? Western Romance. Here we've got Southern Romance, Italo-Romance, North Italian. Yeah, that's what they're doing. Makes sense, sure. Since some content is locked to specific cultures, would you automatically lose that culture-specific content if you switch your primary culture to one that doesn't have content? So it depends on the exact piece of content. Advances will stay, but special units usually won't. So if you are Mongol and changing your culture, then you will lose your special Mongol cavalry, for example. But you'll keep all of the technological advancements that you've made. Will some countries be better at things such as the navy, trade, cavalry, etc. through some mechanism? No, we already know that that's not going to be the case. It's organic. Many of the systems designed to naturally develop these distinctions through interacting with each other in an emergent manner. Some countries get special pieces of historical flavor, though, such as unique advances, reforms, or events to help with their expected narrative, but they're usually mild, and it is a long way from railroading the playthroughs. Okie dokie. Well, then, game synchronized names from different cultures. For example, Henri of France becomes Henry of England, so he would be Henry the Third, or instead of Henry the First, etc. Yeah. Yes. The name database is name_John, and then, if you'll compare your name_John to see if you have a localized version of John, and then it will be added. So, for example, name John is John. In Catalan dialect, it would be Joan. And then East Slavic would be Ivan. I actually had no idea that Ivan was John. Makes sense, though. In Scandinavian, it would be Johan. And then in Spanish, it would be Juan. So, cool. I think that is cool. Very interesting way of doing it. Also, I'm pretty sure we've seen this exact comment before, like months and months and months ago. Either that or heavy deja vu is occurring right now. Regarding titles, will the only well-known cultural titles be used, such as Kaiser, Tsar, Basileus, Sultan, meaning the top titles, or will you get König for king and Graf for count? Sometimes a hard line to know and not cross it, as it would be better to use king in Spain and France than rey in Spain and roi, I actually have no idea how to pronounce that in French, in France. So I have a soft rule where if a ruler title is commonly used in English, or it represents a distinct concept from the English equivalent, we can use the original term. So there is essentially no conceptual difference between the English king and French roi, so they don't translate. But Tsar is something that is commonly used in English, and Sultan is also something that's commonly used in English, despite them both meaning king. So that's an interesting way of doing it. Fair enough. Are there plans to add more varied combat animations instead of a single repeated one? And yeah, firstly, confirmed little men on map. The nerds yearn for the map models. It's clear. And yeah, I'm very excited for them to show us what these look like. Very, very excited indeed. Don't know when that's going to happen, though. Probably when we start seeing, like, the terrain map, for example, potentially. And moving on as well. Poland should also have Latin as a court language. Done. Yeah, they just straight up yeah, that's done. Before we move on to the Tinto maps, Yaps, I just want to say, if you are enjoying this video, if you're enjoying the fact that I'm going over all of the things, then feel free to hit the subscribe button. I do usually 2 or 3 videos a week talking about Tinto Talks, talking about Project Caesar, and yeah, if you want to keep up to date with everything, then hit subscribe, like the video, and write a comment. And now let's have a look at some of the comments regarding Southeast Asia. First of all, Bro is currently working on a detailed feedback for Upper Burma and the Shan states. They almost finished it, etc. But some questions. How do you deal with locations that have identical names? Do you prefer to do a minor spelling variation, giving an adjective to one, like on the river, or using a completely different but possibly smaller settlement? If they're relatively close, there shouldn't be 2 locations with the same name, so some kind of variation would be needed, either by modifying the name a bit, as you said, or by choosing another name. If they're far enough apart, it's not a problem, as they won't be confused. Makes sense. I'm pretty sure there's probably going to be a few Romes. I'm certain there's going to be a few Alexandrias, but you know, that we'll see how it goes. When assigning dynasties to a country, do they need a specific ruler, or could I just say, this country had this dynasty, but I can't say who specifically ruled it in 1337? It's fine if no ruler is known. We also encountered this issue in some places. They have a way of assigning the correct dynasty regardless. Okay, so they can just say, country has dynasty, but the specific ruler is auto-generated first name based on cultural naming list, etc. But yeah, if they have a system, perfect. Curious to know what unique content that regional area gets. Roger saying that there is unique content for those countries. I mean, yep, kind of expected. We know that Ayatthaya is going to have some content. I had a comment, by the way, trying to help me pronounce that word. I'm going to get it wrong still. But something like Ayutthaya, something like that is more accurate. I will forget that. And I'll probably going back to saying Ayatthaya, but I'll try and not do the th sound this time. But yeah, no, thank you to whoever left that comment. I didn't go and check before I made the video, but I will try. Ayutthaya. I think is how it's pronounced. Anyway, moving on. I think we really need to change the color of yuan. Yes, I agree. Everyone agrees. So do they. They're not happy with yuan's color either, because it's awful. It's nasty. No one likes this. Well, asking Roger what color he would have, he's personally inclined on making yuan blue. After Gwyn, just Gwyn, said they prefer yuan blue and Great Ming would be red. I would be inclined to saying a light blue, like perhaps this color here, and it wouldn't impact so much on, for example, Korea, because I feel like Korea is more of a darker blue, or maybe like a more saturated blue, and then yuan could be more of a paler blue. Something like that could totally work, I think. You can have blue next to blue as long as they're different blue. There's lots of different blue in blue. Moving on. I said blue too much. Wouldn't it be better to name the location of Ayodhya Ayutthaya instead? I mean, Ayodhya with that spelling is more in line with the Indian pronunciation of the Indian city of Ayodhya. It will be renamed to Ayutthaya when the nation is formed. Cool. Again, unique content for this country. I love that. So a bunch of questions here from Matfer. Is Divyet an empire? It doesn't have a specific rank refined, and it defaults to duchy, but that's not how it's going to be. The full name doesn't appear because of size. Is Divyet a vassal of Yuan or just a tributary? They are a tributary. Is there a unique mechanic for events regarding the name, the Namtien in the game right now? Divyet have unique content, but they can't go into detail exactly what. Are Monglem and Qianhung, again, I apologize for the pronunciation, I am butchering it. Are they tributaries or direct vassals? They are of Yuan, not of Dali. For Ayutthaya, is there blah 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 here? Are there any events regarding the rise of Lanzhang, Malacca, and Ayutthaya? For Ayutthaya, yes. The other two, not right now, as far as I know. Hopefully that changes before the release of the game, because Malacca, I know, is a very popular nation as well. On the same note, is there any event regarding the sack and decline of Angkor and of the Khmer Empire? There's some content for the decline of Khmer, yes. How many formable tags can the people of Burma restore/form? Are Pagan, Ava, Konbang, and Mianxiang all different tags, etc.? Right now, they are currently dynasties. Can Sops become tributaries Sops is Society of Pops. Can they become tributaries or vassals of the country? Yes, although a country can only have one overlord. And are there any events regarding the foundation of the cities of Bangkok and Ayutthaya? Yes, there are. Can we see the court language map? Here it is. Thai, Khmer, Cham, Vietnamese, Burmese, and Mon. That's simple. That's probably what I would have expected in, like, EU4 to be just the culture. But yeah, no, that's fantastic. Love to see that. Hopefully they will add these maps to the base thread from now on as well. Will there be any mechanics for any reference to the mandala system? Yes, there will be. Yes, there will be. And I had no idea what this was, so I went and had a look at it. It's a Sanskrit word meaning circle. It's a model for describing the patterns of diffuse political power distributed among Muang and Kadatuan principalities in medieval Southeast Asian history. Cool. There will be stuff referencing the mandala system. Moving on though, we have the Saturday building, and we have here a later age building, and it is the Bastion. And these have got a little bit more functionality. These tooltips showing the buildings, because now they show the upgrade paths here. So we go from the stockade, the castle, then the Bastion, Star Fort, and Fortress, and they also show the age in which they're from, which is this one right here. Johan was asked if these images are going to be a bit more frequent so we can get used to them, right? They're going to be used in a lot of places. So while right now this image doesn't really mean much to us, it will do eventually. I hope for a new player experience, if you hover over an age icon, it shows you the tooltip of that age. Everything in the game has detailed and good tooltips. Good to know. And what about specific advance that unlocks them? Wouldn't that just be as important to see on the tooltip? It's a good idea. It will be done. Yeah. So We have no idea right now what advance unlocks the Bastion, but maybe that will be up here soon. But yeah, this is basically your castle building. I will say, artwork on these needs an update. They look like it was made by 5 different artists. Maybe like Stockade and Starfort look like it was made by the same guy, but the rest of them completely different. There's no unifying style between these, so I definitely think that should be changed. But yeah, love that. And I also have some, just 3 more things to show you that are not related to any of the threads we've had so far, but are comments that the developers have made. Firstly, there is a game rule to turn off mission trees. Okay, I probably won't use this. We already know from a previous comment from Johan that there are no country-unique mission trees yet. And there are people who just don't like mission trees at all. There is a game rule to turn them off. If that's your style, there you go. In addition, speaking on game rules, there's also a game rule to enforce AI countries in selecting historical options for events. Players are also shown which option is intended to be the historical one in the UI. I know some people that will really love this. Father Loris, for example, who I do the 3 Moves Ahead podcast when I talk about all things Tinto Talks as well, would love this. When I showed him this, he was very excited. Personally, I will never use it because I like that element of randomness in my games. But if this is what you're looking for, here you go. And then finally, there was an thread. There was an thread. As per usual, there is always an thread. On 3D character models, that they're not acceptable. They're extremely ugly. They're wasteful of performance. Rah. Very funny thread, not gonna lie. Basically just, you know, your monthly complaint about character models. And again, I am not 100% on board with the character models. I think in certain cases they look kind of ugly. But I will say that the going over the top level that we see from some people on character models is it's, you know, that Overton window is, you know, shifting to the right, meaning people in the center are being de facto moved to the left. That's what we're looking at right now. That's what it is. But if I show on the dev responses, there are a couple here. So, guy said here, stuff, most of the things you describe here are not only features that I have working in the Caesar portraits, but also a fairly comprehensive list of things that are very hard to do well in 2D. Portraits are work in progress, just like everything else in the game. I hope Project Caesar will make further strides, blah, blah, blah. This isn't actually an angry comment. I don't know, I did that voice. Hopefully they make personages more stylized. And the guy's like, oh, use TF2's approach. Look at this TF2 thing. They're so stylized. Well, it's kind of difficult. Team Fortress 2 characters are awesome and full of life. And just in case you weren't aware of what they look like, Team Fortress 2 guy, and another Team Fortress 2, same guy. And then less than perfect example is, yeah, I mean, Vicky 3, no more need said. But yeah, they're awesome, full of life, but it's not a very fair comparison as they only have to make 9 distinct characters. More on this, if Team Fortress 2's 9 characters must look distinct for the gameplay to work, whereas characters in Caesar exist to immerse you further into the complex historical world. In our situation, we need to cover every human possible in the world. We have to make a king of France look distinct from a peasant of France than a class perspective. We need to make a Turkish man look different from a South Indian man from an ethnic perspective, and they need to make infants look different from teenagers, women different from men. All the things significantly add complexity, and it would be unsatisfying to players if they didn't have them. They can't identify them by giving a character a massive chin. I mean, the Habsburgs do exist. So I'm just saying you chose a bad example. Another one of very broad shoulders, skinny legs, while Valve could do so. With literally infinite potential characters in the Caesar world, the task has many times more factors, and it's not really fair to compare against a project that has very different requirements. That's fair. That is a fair thing, you know. Oh, TF2 characters, they're so, you know, character design, but it's just not, it's not the same thing. You can't really do that. How in-depth will character portraits be in Project Caesar? Will they reflect diseases and such? Not as much as in CK3. Characters are not the focus of Caesar and don't really acquire physical traits or diseases in Caesar. It's mostly skills. What stood out in the wrong direction about the Great Powers list was the lack of facial hair for the Mongols and Japanese monarchs, the babyface shogun, etc. And yeah, he agrees. Better global variety is something they're working towards right now, including, for example, more appropriate beards for Asia or armor in the Middle East. Why are they all wearing armor? Characters who are generals or have general traits wear armor. And Arvas, you're saying all the time, why not only win at war? At least for kings and emperors. Good idea. They change it so characters with general trait will still always wear armor, but will only wear their helmet when leading an army. Fair enough. And that is all I have time for today. That is it. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you have found some interesting information to glean from this Tinto Yaps. A pretty long one. I haven't done one this long in a while, so I hope you stayed to the end. If you did, I give you the thumbs up. Maybe you can give me one in return. Hit the like button, comment if you like, and subscribe if you like, and I will see you on Wednesday. Toodaloo. Bye-bye.